what's going on, guys? It's Kevin Swicker from Fast Count coming at you, and this is the first official Fast Count post show for the WWE PLE Summerslam. I am joined by a very special guest. This man is a 20-year media vet. You can find him on the Robin Lundberg YouTube show. You can also find him on the Women's Fast Break on SI. You can also find him on Denise Salcedo's YouTube channel doing a Friday Night SmackDown post show. This man's name is Robin Lundberg. What's going on?
Yo, you know, you did your best rock there, but also Samantha Irvin. Shout out to Samantha Irvin. She's very, very good at her job. Like when her job is to, not bring the attention on her, but do what she's supposed to do enough that you notice her. And she really does a very professional job of being an excellent ring announcer. I was pumped during some of her introductions.
For sure, man. Her and Howard Finkel, they are right here. Very different styles, but both equally great. Let's start in with this show, man. This is a show that was kind of by the numbers when it comes to you predicting the outcomes, but it was a show that also really furthered the storyline. What are your initial thoughts after watching SummerSlam, Robin?
Yeah, I thought it was an excellent show. I mean, look, when you say by the numbers, the decisions all seem to be correct to me, right? Like it's nothing that I was like, oh man, that was stupid, or you squandered this, which shows that Triple H does think, long term and toward these big payoffs at these big events. And this was, is the biggest signature event outside of the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. I think it's generally, I'd say a toss up between Royal Rumble and SummerSlam, what people would consider the second biggest show. And it was the best show, felt the biggest since WrestleMania, right? Like, I mean, it felt like it had that vibe of magnitude and aura. And then you go through it and, real quick, we can get into specific stuffs, but just right off the bat, I thought the opener was awesome with Rhea and Liv Morgan and Dominic Mysterio, the whole storyline aspect, Rhea snapping her shoulder back in place. Like, I thought that was sick. I thought most everything on the card was solid. I thought Gunther and Damian Priest was an absolute banger. That was up there with the opener, maybe the match of the night. And then, yeah, we realized once Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes was last, I knew for sure Roman Reigns was actually coming back. Because if we're being real about it, Solo ain't got the goods like that. Like he's a fine character. He's done a nice job. But he don't have that bag. He don't have that natural charisma in the ring that makes you want to watch him. So for that to go last, it had to be leading to a Roman Reigns return. Now we get babyface Roman Reigns, who is going to sell a lot of merchandise.
Yeah, for sure. And when I said predictable, I didn't mean it in the negative type of way. Like the WrestleMania main event between Cody Rhodes and Roman Reigns, the outcome was predictable. We all knew Cody Rhodes was going to win, but it's still a banger of a match. You know what I mean? Like, it was just one of those situations where it's like, we kind of knew the outcome of this match, but it was a great not pay-per-view, PLE. You see, I'm not fed-brained. The great PLE, nonetheless, because of just the bangers matches that we happen to see tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that may have been a negative is, I will have to see what the news is on it, but I'm not so sure Jacob Fatu wasn't genuinely injured on that table spot. And if that's so, that would be a big blow because he has really looked like a revelation and a superstar in the making. At the very worst, a monster foil for your best guy, right? So I hope he's not genuinely really badly hurt on that table spot because that would hurt them in the long run probably in what they were trying and attempting to pull off. But as far as it being predictability is fine if it's satisfying. Right? Like, predictability sucks when it's boring. It's fine when it's satisfying.
For sure, man. Less like you said about Jacob Fatu, if he really is legitimately hurt, that is a bummer because a man his size shouldn't be doing the things that he's doing. Jumping off the top ropes, delivering those super kicks. I just salivate at the thought of thinking of him and Gunther getting into the ring. That would be a banger of a match that I'm sure will be lined up for the future.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think they were trying to set all this stuff in motion and the layers within the bloodline. And I'm watching video right now. Jacob Fatu is definitely limping back under some assistance with the ref, but under his own power. He's on both of his own legs. No one's actually holding him up on the way back. So that is at least a good sign, right? And then when you look at Roman Reigns, I think you just sent me a tweet on a text. Roman Reigns is. Oh no, somebody else is saying it. Roman Reigns is just got close to your area code. Roman Reigns is like the biggest baby face now, right? Like for him to go from talk about aura and star power to leave the biggest heel and immediately return the biggest baby face without doing nothing but changing your shirt. Come on.
Dude, Roman Reigns is one of those guys who it's like, we've gotten to the stage right now with Roman Reigns, since we don't see him as often as we used to. He's gotten to the stage where just when he appears, we're just thankful for the fact that we get to be blessed with seeing him in our screens. But let's get into the show. We're going to start the show off with the beginning. Triple H opens up the show with his rah-rah speeches that he usually does with his signature catchphrase from DX. We have The Miz, who is the hometown boy, open up the show, greeting everybody. And then we get a performance by Jelly Roll. You a big Jelly Roll fan, Robin?
I don't really know who that is, other than I saw him here and I know he's on the Eminem album, and I've seen him at other various functions, like maybe, singing a song here or there, but I'm not like intimately familiar with Jelly Roll.
Yeah, Jelly Roll, he's a big WWE fan. He also has one of the biggest songs in the country with MGK, who we also will be mentioning in the show later on.
I can't take MJK seriously after Killshot.
What you mean?
The Eminem joint, Killshot, it was over. Like now every time I see him, I laugh.
Man, come on, man. MGK killed that old man.
No, he did not.
He did.
Killshot dragged him around the parking lot and beat him to death.
If any of you guys are familiar with Robin's channel, we have a series where we are talking about the Drake and Kendrick beef that we've kind of covered from the beginning to the end. If that type of banter is more your thing, go check out his channel. It's on one of the playlists. It's very entertaining if you are into that stuff. The opening match to open up the show is what we were talking about earlier, the Rhea versus Liv Morgan match. And if you've seen videos on my channel, I stated that unless we knew that Roman Reigns was going to return, which we are going to get into a lot more later on, this was the main event match to me, because over these past couple of months, this has been the storyline that I feel like most people have been invested in. It's had many twists and turns. You have Rhea Ripley, who can go in the ring. You have Liv Morgan, who's shown that she can go in the ring. And this is exactly the type of match that we got, a story that is told within the match. What are your thoughts on this match coming out of it?
Yeah, I thought it was awesome. I thought it was everything it needed to be. I mean, I think after this card, it's either that or Priest Gunther. I wouldn't be mad at either selection, but those were the two standout matches. And Rhea Ripley, her selling was out of control good, on the shoulder, because I was like, is she hurt? Is she not hurt? I didn't think she was hurt, and then Liv's attacking her. But the whole spot where she slammed it back in was awesome. Liv did a great job in the match, too. So before the Dom stuff before you even get to the Dom stuff, I thought the match itself was great. Then, of course, you bring in the Dom stuff to pay off maybe the most soap opera-ish and scandalous story they've done in a long, thinking about the way they've done the story, I almost picture Vince McMahon in a do-rag, right? Like, it feels like it's from that sort of era, a throwback in that way. But, of course, Dom turning on Rhea Ripley, which keeps us invested in it. And the announcers did a good job selling it too. Like, that no good, rotten son of a bitch, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man, it was very reminiscent of WrestleMania 20, where they had Trish Stratus turn on Chris Jericho and make out with Christian. It was very reminiscent of that. And even the way that the announcers reacted to it this time was very reminiscent to the good old JR. Like you said earlier, the match itself was pretty great. Seeing that shoulder spot where Rhea Ripley rammed into the announcer table and then also ran into the turnbuckle to pop her shoulder back in, that was some pretty gnarly stuff. Wrestling, there's been a lot of, recycled material, but I can't even remember ever seeing a spot like that. Do you?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Not off the top of my head. That's just like that one.
For sure. It was one of those things that was pretty gnarly to see. But like we mentioned earlier, the end of that match that will have significant consequences going forward. We saw Dominic look like he was trying to assist Rhea Ripley. He had that moment where he took the belt not the belt. He took the chair from Rhea Ripley, telling her that you can't win the title by DQ, which is true. And then at the end, he sat there and turned on mommy and joined with Liv Morgan. If you've watched my previous videos, you've seen this is something that I've been calling for the last couple of weeks. And it's just great to see it manifest. How do you feel about how this played out? And what do you think is going to happen in the future now?
So I think you're extending this, right? And one of the little factoids they share was Rhea Ripley hadn't lost or been pinned in 26 months, I think it was. And the last time it was Liv Morgan. And now it's Liv Morgan again with the betrayal of Dirty Dom. So you have two different sort of ways to needle at Rhea Ripley. Obviously, the overt one of I stole your man. And then the number two one of I'm the one who can beat you. Right? Like, so it hits double hard. I think this is one of those programs, and you don't get them that often anymore, where it's extended and goes for a while. And Rhea's eventually going to get that title back. You know, Liv has done an excellent job with it. I think her going over tonight was the right call. Absolutely. But Rhea Ripley is the single biggest female star in the industry right now. You know, when it comes to just how big she feels. And she's the reason why you said this match felt main event. Yeah, they had been planting the seeds, but none of that seeds grow without the water. And Rhea Ripley was the water when she returned to Raw. And Raw has felt like the bigger show since SmackDown during that period of time. So I do think they'll extend this feud, but Rhea, wherever they choose for that to be, whether it's Survivor Series or the Rumble, I don't think it gets all the way to WrestleMania necessarily. But whenever they choose to do that, Rhea is winning. And Rhea also, what about a Rhea Dom match down the line?
I'm thinking that, man, because, you know, a few weeks ago, they've been kind of planting the seeds of Jey Uso being involved in this. So I could potentially see this. The one thing that really popped into my mind is we have Bad Blood in October, which is relatively soon. And if you know the history of the Bad Blood PLE, that's where a lot of different Hell in a Cell matches have occurred. And as we get further along in this card, there is a couple of matches that you can kind of make a case belong in the Hell in a Cell. Because traditionally, before they had the Hell in a Cell PLE, that was a match that was used to blow off a lot of feuds. So we can make a case, the longer we go into this card and discussing it, that there's a few matches that could fit that criteria of belonging in the Hell in a Cell. And I think this match that we were talking about is one of those matches that you can make an argument can occur in Hell in a Cell.
Oh, I think, it's perfectly tailor-made for it, right? Like, and I think, you know, it might be 2 or 3 matches that they wind up having. You know, where they've had one. So it might be 2. It might be 2 more. It might not just be 1 more. But I also could see, I could see Rhea Ripley and Dominic Mysterio at WrestleMania. That's an interesting enough match for a number of reasons. Obviously, the backstory, the male female aspect of it. Would they actually still go through with that in today's day and age? You know, missing the Olympics. But you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, man. Definitely been full of those type of conversations.
Yeah.
But let's get into these comments real quick. We got Salty Grampy 2367. Not sure if I'll be awake for this. I'm old. Good luck, kid. Salty Grampy, I appreciate the support.
Is that your grandfather or somebody else?
That's actually my dad.
Okay, your dad. Oh, he says Grampy. Is he a grandfather?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not my kid, but yeah, he's a grandfather. We got the OG, one of our boys, friend of the Robin Lundberg show, AJ Schreiber, saying, what a show. Also commented again, I'm unable to send super chats. Ask Robin how to do it. AJ, I don't have the qualifications of how many subscribers I are able to.
He just started the channel. He's not monetized yet. You got to be monetized to be able to set up super chats.
Facts, I'm not monetized. We got Drew, who is a noted Cowboy fan. Go Boys, saying wet like water. Don't know what that means at all.
Because I said the thing about Rhea Ripley being the water to Dom, so he's playing off that. Or he's talking about my jump shot. One of the two.
I've seen your jump shot. It's pretty wet. Got AJ Schreiber again, shouting out my boy Drew. Drew said, you guys are killing it. Keep up the good work. I appreciate that, Drew. That means a lot. We are going to get into the second match of the card, and that is Braun Breaker versus Sami Zayn. Going into this match, you kind of knew that Braun Breaker was going to win, but we got to give Sami Zayn a lot of credit for how strong he made Braun Breaker look in this match. I don't know if you agree on this point, but Sami Zayn is very similar to a guy like Jake Roberts or Roddy Piper, where it's like he doesn't need a belt to necessarily be featured on the show in a prominent way and being entertaining. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, well, I think he had his moment. I was at WrestleMania for that match, and when you look at, okay, let's break it down this way. Was that WrestleMania one of the most memorable WrestleManias of all time? Yes, right? Like, where it is on the most, it's up there.
Yeah.
What on that card was most memorable? Obviously, Cody and Roman and what happened there. The fact that The Rock was involved, the tag match the night, and then Gunther and Sami Zayn. That match was incredible. The vibe was incredible. The story was incredible. The fan support for Sami Zayn was incredible. He wins. He gets that hero moment, sort of like punctuating his career in a sense on that stage. And then it's not as if he just dropped it to Braun either. Like, Braun's been coming in, but they had the match. What did they have the match at Money in the Bank? They had the match at Money in the Bank, and Sami went over, right? Like, he used his veteran tricks to be able to best Braun Breaker. Braun learned from that experience and took the title. I think all in all, it was a nice run for Sami Zayn. I think you could tell by the commentary. I mean, you said it, some comparisons to greats, like Roddy's a great and Jake is a great. They were saying future Hall of Famer Sami Zayn. That was the language that they were using on the broadcast. So he has cemented, solidified, all those things. I think you could throw him into the bloodline mix down the line here, considering his history there, and that would work. But really, anything Sami Zayn is going to do will work. But the purpose of that specific match was to make Braun Breaker look strong, and they did.
And he did, man. Braun Breaker, I don't know how do you feel about this? AEW, they like to use the term pillars a lot. The 4 pillars of the company. How do you feel about me saying that Braun Breaker and Gunther are legitimately 2 pillars of the future in WWE right now?
I think Gunther for sure. I think with Breaker, it remains to be seen, but he certainly has the potential. I mean, physically, yes. Like, just from like this guy's an awesome athlete and a force of nature. He's got all those boxes. Can he carry a program? Can he promo? Like, that's the stuff that Gunther had to prove too, and he did. And Gunther is funnier and better on the mic than I think people realized without a mouthpiece next to him. I think that's the next step for Braun Breaker, unless, he winds up with Paul Heyman or something like that. He has to be able to learn to carry a promo and a program, and that's when I'll call him a pillar. For right now, he's a potential pillar.
Facts, man. And the things that he does in the ring, he reminds me a lot. He looks like his dad, but he moves a lot like his Uncle Scott. He even talks like his Uncle Scott, doing moves like the Frankensteiner, and the way that he does his spear. I know it's a thing that he puts on the t-shirt, best spear in the business, but he legitimately has an argument for that. The way the guy moves, the way he does all this thing, it wouldn't surprise me if within the next 3 years, this guy is the world heavyweight champion.
Well, and Scott Steiner was the more impressive Steiner in the ring. Eventually he became, like whatever Big Papa Pump was, Big Papa Balco over there. But, eventually he became that. But before that, Scott Steiner was the goods, right? Like, in the ring, and the Frankensteiner was like an unheard of thing to, like, as wrestling has evolved and as you've seen more acrobatics involved. I mean, you bring up AEW, they lean into the acrobatics a lot, right? Like, a move like the Frankensteiner was like, awe-inspiring when you were younger. So Scott Steiner, shouts to him for that. And I think you're right. Braun has more of that in his bag, and a little bit of like the dog pound thing as a selling point because of his dad. But I think he also has to carve out his own personality here, because he's got the work rate, he's got the physical impressiveness, he's got all that down to a science. It's the other stuff. It's the intangibles and the mic work that's going to have to get in there.
For sure, man. We got another comment here from Mommy's Daycare. Like the feedback from you both. I appreciate that a lot. That's very nice of you to say. We're going to get into the third match of this card. And this is a match that, like we talked about earlier, the ending was predictable, but the way that it was executed was not. We have the hometown boy, Logan Paul, who didn't get a good hometown welcome and has not had the best week PR-wise, going up against the megastar LA Knight. Now, this match for me was a very pivotal match of the card because as we've noticed the past couple of months, especially since Triple H has taken over, LA Knight has gotten these massive reactions from the crowd. But it seems like every time he's going into a big match, he loses. You know, examples like his match against in Saudi Arabia against Roman Reigns. He didn't come up with the Money in the Bank. So it really felt like one of those moments where it's like, if you're going to pull the trigger on this guy, tonight is the night. And thankfully, they did pull the trigger with LA Knight winning the championship. What is your thoughts on this match, and how do you feel about LA Knight's performance?
You know, LA Knight has persevered, right? Like, he got really over, and then he had the match with Roman, and it feels like he was just sort of middling. He had to win it at WrestleMania to be like, here you go, against AJ Styles. But it feels like he's just been, like, persevering through all this, despite the fact that he's at an advanced age for somebody who's coming up on their most popular time. I think he's done some really good work in the last couple of weeks with those old school style backstage vignettes that he's been cutting as he's moving. So I think that's worked really well for him. I think they were always building towards him having this big moment at the U.S. title. I don't think Logan dropped it because of whatever he said on Twitter this week. But that brought him a lot of heat. Yeah, the one thing you have to give Logan Paul is no matter what you think about him, I mean, he does stuff that you're like, all right, you got to give it up. That springboard moonsault that he did to the outside, there aren't many people on the planet who can pull that off. But yeah, I thought it was the right decision. I thought it was a good move for LA Knight, and I think he's currently doing some of his strongest work. And the match was overall solid, right? Like 3.5 stars.
For sure, man. Logan Paul, he is the opposite of Ricky Steamboat. Everybody used to always say that nobody ever wants to boo Ricky Steamboat and make him a heel. Nobody ever wants to cheer Logan Paul and see him as a face. That dynamic doesn't work at all. And one of the things that I know that people talk about this a lot, and I don't want to come across like I'm glazing too hard, but we've had athletes in the WWE like Floyd Mayweather, Tyson Fury, LT actually said that his match against Bam Bam Bigelow at WrestleMania was the hardest thing he's ever done. And that says a lot for a guy who played in the NFL for over a decade. But those guys are, if we're doing a list of the 100 greatest athletes of all time, they are on. And for a guy like Logan Paul to be able to be so great in the ring, so fast, I know it gets talked about a lot, but we really don't put as much emphasis as we probably should of how impressive he has been able to be so fast.
Well, the man was in the ring with Floyd Mayweather, right? Like, so you could say what you want about the farce of a fight that was. I don't care. You don't go into the ring opposite arguably the greatest boxer of all time as essentially a novice without some level of like special athletic ability. So I think Logan has that. He's fearless in that sense too. He's clearly fearless, right? He's got the YouTuber sense of how to frame himself, not only like literally that like the drone shot that they did on the frog splash, but he knows he's the annoying prick, and he leans into the fact that he's the annoying prick, and he's got that down as well. I mean, he's it's a shame that he got himself caught up in a bunch of shit this week because he's a really, really gifted performer as a professional wrestler. He's touched in a way that almost nobody else is.
This is facts, man. And I think he'll be all right, man. Logan Paul, he potentially has a WWE run. I feel like that's going to happen eventually. I feel like once Bad Bunny has the free time too, I feel like we're going to get that match. And that will probably be the most, I can't even put into words how much hype and how much of the casuals will be around for a match like that.
Doesn't Logan Paul claim himself from Puerto Rico too? So you could see him like saying, "I'm the real Puerto Rican." During that lead up.
From a PR standpoint, especially what's going on around the world right now, where you're not going to get too into it, but certain individuals are being challenged for their racial backgrounds. I could not see that going well. But
no, but like saying like he reps because I think he's actually like when they announce him, he's from Puerto Rico.
Yeah, he does live in Puerto Rico.
Okay, yeah.
Clearly not Puerto Rican.
Not claiming to be of Puerto Rican descent, but claiming to get more love in Puerto Rico. Like Drake falsely claimed he got more love in LA before that was shut down.
what is your problem, man? We talking about Graps. We talking about Drake. Drake won that SummerSlam, but I kind of hinted at it earlier. During this match, if you've been paying attention to the last couple of Logan Paul matches, he's had his crew, the Prime guys, interfere with his matches, handing him brass knucks. This time we got multi-award-winning rapper MGK hand him the brass knucks, and it backfired on him, and he lost the title. How'd you feel about? You kind of made your feelings about MGK earlier. How'd you feel about him getting involved in this match, man?
I really know nothing about MGK other than Eminem destroyed him with that song, and I can't take him seriously since then. What has he been in? He looks like he's been in Transformers movies. Has he been in Transformers movies?
His wife has.
His wife has. What's a song by MGK?
Wild Boy. Waka Flocka. I'm a wild boy. I'm a wild boy.
No, I don't think I ever heard that.
He's on one of the biggest songs in the world with Jelly Roll, who we're also going to talk about getting involved in the show later on as well.
I don't know that song either. I'm gonna have to listen to it when I'm done. But yeah, I mean, like once they're there, they might as well be involved. I mean, that's the point, and that's the point of putting them in, involving them. They weren't. They didn't all of a sudden randomly come in and cost CM Punk, right? So it's all right.
This is true. And the one thing, The Rock, when he came back, he talked a lot about wrestling being cool again. And you can see that over the last couple of months. A lot of the times we're doing PLEs, even in Saudi Arabia, we're having a lot of celebrity involvement. You go on social media, you see guys like Drewski being at WrestleMania, and you have Jelly Roll, who's one of the biggest artists in the world, being at SummerSlam as well. So we're really seeing wrestling getting that cool factor. And you also have guys like Kevin Gates and Rick Ross being involved in AEW and Lamar Jackson. So we're seeing a lot of big-time stars in the wrestling world. And as a nerdy wrestling fan, I am all for it. I like everybody being involved. And if you're cool coming into the wrestling world, it just makes wrestling more cooler. And I want everybody to like wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's been a part of wrestling fabric forever, right? Hell, was Mr. T in the main event of WrestleMania 1? I think he might have been. So that's been the the way that wrestling has helped bring fans in. And I think the most effective I've ever seen is Johnny Knoxville against Sami Zayn at WrestleMania, because that was legitimately an awesome classic match. Bad Bunny and Damian Priest is up there too. But these sort of things generally are good for a cheap pop and generally are good for that sort of celebrity spot of you scratch my back, I scratch yours, right? That's what that really is. It's promotion for Jelly Roll, because you could say he's got the biggest song, and I know he's on the Eminem record, and I've heard his name before, but I legitimately will go listen to that song actively. Okay, what's this song that's topping the charts right now? Let me see if I like it or not. And I wouldn't have done that if he didn't appear in WWE.
This is true. We got another comment from Mommy's Dinka. She said, Lord, Robin, what is it they do? Was it the Drake reference? I'm assuming it was that. Anyways, we're going to talk about the next match that's in this card. And this is Nia Jax and Bayley for the Women's Championship. I like the way that they set this match up. Michael Cole, he talked about their history, their matches that they had in NXT. He also mentioned the fact that they haven't had a singles match in the WWE in over 5 years. And I also like the fact that we had in the back of their minds that Tiffany Stratton could cash in her Money in the Bank, which she attempted to do. What are your thoughts on how this match was executed? And what do you think about Nia Jax since she's returned to the WWE? Because personally, to me, she was very hard to watch previously under Vince McMahon. But since Triple H has brought her back, it feels like night and day performer.
Yeah, she's earned it. I think she's earned it. I think look, that you can see what Vince McMahon saw in her, in the sense that Vince McMahon always liked these larger than life physical archetypes where you see somebody and you go, holy, look at this person. And that would be why Omos was there, or Giant Gonzalez, or throughout time there's been character, and I think Nia Jax falls into that mode of that's a large woman. And I'm impressed by how large this woman is. She has, since she's come back, developed a character, and I think the Queen Nia thing is fitter. She's gotten better in the ring, where you don't go into a match thinking, all right, this is just something to pass the time. I can be invested in this. I thought the finish of the match was very strong. made her look very strong with the Tiffy fake cash in, pump fake, and then Nia finishing Bayley the way she did. I think the only negative is Bayley's title run was kind of like she won it at WrestleMania, pretty good match against Io Sky. This is the most memorable thing I think that's happened since.
She'll have her time in the future, man. But the hotter storyline going on is the dynamic between Nia and Tiffany Stratton. I know a lot of times her previous work under Vince, she had a lot of that kind of Goldberg quality. A lot of times when you read about Goldberg online, a lot of the guys that wrestled him would talk about, especially somebody like Bret Hart who hates his guts, talk about going into a match with Goldberg. They would tell him things like, please don't hurt me or please be gentle. And Nia Jax had that similar rep. But if you are a Becky Lynch fan, you should be thanking Nia Jax. If she didn't break Becky Lynch's nose, who knows what the history of wrestling would have been. And we probably would have never got one of those most badass images in wrestling history where Becky Lynch had the blood coming out of her nose. That and the image of Steve Austin being in the sharpshooter with his face bloodied up. Those are probably the two coolest images in wrestling history.
Definitely up there for sure. Yeah. Look, I mean, I think it was the right time to pull the trigger on Nia, so can't be mad about the way it ended. I just Bayley, I almost feel bad because she worked so long to get to that, and after it was just kind of there.
Facts. And the fact that she came off of that injury and then had that WrestleMania moment and the title reign was kind of mid. I do feel bad in that sense, but this is the greatest story. And who knows, eventually, with Tiffany Stratton have that women's Money in the Bank, it's going to set up for a interesting dynamic throughout the rest of the year and throughout this title reign between her and Tiffany Stratton. Her and Nia Jax. Now we're going to get into the most intriguing match of the night to me. This is the match that I had the most questions going into, and that is CM Punk versus Drew McIntyre. And the questions I had going into this match was, who is going to win? Because I feel like it was a big-time win that both of these guys needed. Was CM Punk going to be able to physically hold up in a match against Drew McIntyre? Because this is a man who is in his late 40s. He's wrestled his first singles match in WWE in 10 years, and he's also coming off of 2 pec injuries within the last year. He hurt his pec in AEW when he had Brawl Out, and then he hurt his pec in his first match at the Royal Rumble. What did you think about this match? How do you feel about the story going into it, and are you satisfied with what we got?
Was it not his triceps at the Royal Rumble? I believe it was his triceps. So he didn't double pec it. Yeah, he tore his tricep.
Oh, yeah. He tore his tricep and then he tore his pec in AEW. Okay.
Yeah, tricep, which is like 3 times bigger than your bicep, right? Or much bigger. It's a big muscle in your arm. So that's why it's such a significant injury. Look, CM Punk is this close to washed. This close to washed. When you see him in the ring. And the same went with AEW. I said the same thing at AEW. I'm not going to change my tune because he's in WWE. It's the same person in both places. And I would watch him in AEW. I'm like, yeah, he's this close to watch. He's rinsed. Same thing in WWE right now. He got through the match, and I think he did well. He got through the match, and he did well, showed he can still perform at a high level, but you have to keep it at a certain pace. You have to hope he doesn't get hurt, and you don't know how many more are left in the chamber. CM Punk gets by because he is one of the most fascinating personalities and characters that the industry has ever seen, down to the bar he hit Seth Rollins with in the match. Seth is going, this isn't all about you. It's not everything is about you. And CM Punk says, you're right. Not everything is about me, but nothing is about you. And that is CM Punk in a nutshell right there. That is why CM Punk is as big as he is. I thought the storytelling carried this match. As a match itself, it was a B. With the story involved, it gets to an A, because the way they had Punk cost himself after all this, the way that they planted the seeds for Punk and Rollins, or Punk, Rollins, McIntyre, or both, right? Like triple threat and an individual match with Punk and Rollins. And in a sense, played off of what everybody says and thinks about CM Punk, right? Why is CM Punk in WWE? Because he lost, he flew off the handle and couldn't control himself. Why did CM Punk lose to Drew McIntyre? Because he got emotional, flew off the handle, and couldn't control himself.
Facts, man. We did a video earlier this year comparing rappers and wrestlers. And I remember in that video that is on your channel if you want to check that video out, I compared CM Punk to Kanye. Is because there is no in between when it comes to those guys. You either love them and nothing they can do could be wrong in your eyes, or you hate their guts. And CM Punk is one of those guys. And you touched on it a little bit. The ending was perfect to me. Because like you've talked about and like we see online all the time, CM Punk has this reputation of being a person who self-destructs. He did it his first time in WWE. He did it especially in AEW. And so the fact that they were able to play into it and the fact that he actually was cool with it and didn't really get pissed off in real life, is one of those things that I find super fascinating. And this is also one of those matches that, we touched on earlier, has the potential to be a Hell in a Cell match once we get to that PLE in October.
Yeah, I mean, look, you just got to hope, you got to keep your fingers crossed that Punk makes it out. The number one thing is, did he get hurt in the match? He didn't get hurt. And that's a good thing because his, anytime you got the man with a live microphone, you're on the edge of your seat.
This is true, man. And the thing about it that I'm really interested is when WWE Raw finally goes to Netflix. I know he did an interview earlier this week talking about how he doesn't want the fact that you could drop the F word and drop all these swear words to be a crutch. But I'm really interested in that one CM Punk promo where he's really on top of his game and how he's able to drop that promo once he doesn't have any type of restrictions at all like they have right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it matters. I think he's been, I mean, look, the pipe bomb was what it was. A lot of these things were what they were like because of, again, the bar I just said, nothing profane about it, but it hit like a mother,
True, man. We're going to go back to the comment section. We have AJ Schreiber again. The tribal chief is back. Yes, AJ, we are going to get into that. And he also says that this is an outstanding recap. I appreciate it. AJ, your support is always welcome on my channel and Robin's channel, one of the true OGs of the game. We are going to get in.
Yeah, of course. You left I didn't realize you were going to, I thought you were going to transition. You left a pregnant pause, so I just have to shout out AJ. That's all.
Oh, my bad. I was checking out my notes, bro. So we're going to talk about the Priest and Gunther match. And this was one of those matches that I feel like it was the perfect blend of an old school big man match, like a Hogan and a John Studd. But also it was one of those matches where you could also see flashes of the modern time. I feel like if Triple H could make a wrestler in a lab of what he would consider to be the perfect prototype of a wrestler, it would be Gunther.
Yeah, I mean, he's got it all. He's a main eventer. Like he's a main eventer. He's the next heel. He can be what Yokozuna was for a very short time in a different way, and is much more gifted on the microphone. His promos have been great. I mean, he did the Cleveland bit that blew up the other day, right? Like he'd rather be dead than live in Cleveland or whatever. So he's got it all. And every time he gets in the ring, it feels like you got potential for one of the best match, if not the best match on the card. I mean, I talked about Sami Zayn and him earlier. Arguably the best match of night one of WrestleMania, certainly top 3 on that card. This one, arguably the match of the night, I think, along with the opener for me. Those dudes beat the piss out of each other. Those chops are drawn. Think about a chop drawing blood. Like hand to hand, hand to chest. No blade, no nothing. Like just the ferocity of the chops that these dudes were landing. They drew blood. You could see it on Priest too. Like, Gunther's from where he's from, he's much more fair complexion. So the blood is going to be a little bit more apparent, but you could see it on Priest as well. I don't know if it had broken the skin actually, or the blood was just underneath, but you could see it there too. And those dudes they went at it. They went at it, and I thought it was excellent. I thought it was Damian Priest's best match in WWE, aside from Bad Bunny. Like those are two different, so very different matches. It's hard to compare them. But if you're saying like, I want to watch Damian Priest, those are the two that I'm telling you to watch. And I thought he did well, and it made his title reign feel better in the way that he lost. And then I mean, obviously Gunther was heading for that title and heading to those, by taking the Intercontinental title off of him, you were actually setting him up to go for the bigger belts.
For sure, man. It's always, for the past couple of months, especially under Triple H's regime, he's always been kind of earmarked to be that guy who is eventually going to be the world heavyweight champion. And I'm glad that we finally got that night, to be this night. It was his coronation moment. I remember when I looked at his chops, I thought how painful it was. I know last week in AEW, they did something similar with Chris Jericho and Minoru Suzuki. I know The Undertaker on his podcast, he talked about his match with Ric Flair, who's obviously very famous for his chops. And he just talked about and emphasized how much those things hurt and how much he begged Ric Flair not to chop him. And for a guy like The Undertaker, who is known for his pain tolerance, because, if you don't know, he got, his first-degree burns in the Elimination Chamber one year because of the pyro was too close to him. This is a guy who has withstood a lot of pain. And for him to talk about those things hurting, I definitely believe him.
Well, that's, like, why don't you want to belly flop into a pool, right? Like, it's the same principle. It's that smack. And in this case, it's coming from two very large individuals who are doing their best to, I mean, I don't know if they were holding back at all, to be honest, because you're not going to, like, kill somebody with one of those chops. Like, it's not a blunt force trauma to the head. You're not in danger of rupturing, a part that's going to keep you out. So you don't have to hold back as much. It really does come back to the pain tolerance. And those dudes were laying it into it. It reminded me of Sheamus and Drew and Gunther from WrestleMania a couple years back. It was a similar script to that one.
Yeah. I remember that match being extremely physical. But the most important part of this match was the implosion of the Judgment Day as we know it. We've seen Finn Balor turn on Damian Priest at the end. This has kind of been hinted at the last couple of weeks. It's a situation where you kind of had little hints there and there, the miscommunication between the two. Before the match started, Damian Priest, he told Finn that he didn't want him out there. And Finn told him, he said, hey, just give me the signal, I'll be out there. Damian didn't give him the signal and he came out anyways. When that kind of happened, I kind of assumed Finn was turning on him. How do you feel about the Finn turn, and how do you feel about where this is going to go later on?
Well, I think the Finn turn, once the Dom turn happened, the Finn turn was also inevitable. We've reached the end of the Judgment Day as we know it. I don't know if Priest and Rhea are going to link up now and keep it going as like a mini faction, but more on the babyface side of things at this point. I think that's a possibility. Obviously, they have had the Jey Uso Rhea thing that they planted the seeds for, and those are two of the most over people that they've got. And then Finn Balor and Damian Priest, like, okay, here's a good mid-card match for the next 3 pay-per-views.
Man, the match itself will be a banger. Before the Bad Bunny match, I wasn't really too big into Damian Priest, and even a little bit after, I wasn't too big into him. I didn't really see too much of the hype around him. I just thought he was this big, good-looking guy, but ring-wise, I didn't really get the hype. But these last couple of weeks, and especially this match that we had tonight with Gunther, I'm really starting to like the guy, and I think, it's known that Finn is able to go in the ring. I think that they'll be able to put on a good match together.
Oh, yeah. No, I think so, too. I'm not saying it's going to be a bad match. It's just not headlining anything. It's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be the third match of, Bad Blood and the Berlin Bash or whatever they're calling that one.
So you're telling me this is not going to be the main event of WrestleMania?
Yeah, nah, never. No.
All right. Now, before we get into the main event of the show, we get stopped by The Miz and R-Truth. Miz is the hometown boy in Cleveland. He is out there to announce the attendance. Him and R-Truth, they have a little back-and-forth comedy. Then we see your two favorite tag teams, the A-Town Down, Grayson Waller and my boy Austin Theory. They come out, they do their little back and forth with R-Truth, and then they bring in Jelly Roll, making fun of his weight, which wasn't the nicest thing to do. And then we see Jelly Roll and Awesome Truth deliver a 5-knuckle shuffle to A-Town Down. What do you think about this duo being reignited of Miz and R-Truth? And how do you feel about this segment? Did you laugh? Did you go to the bathroom? What did you do?
I mean, that's what it was designed for. I think I made a tuna sandwich. It's fine. Miz is born to be the host of live shows and talk while people are going to the concession or the bathroom. And R-Truth is a a slapstick comedy character, right? Like so. Yeah, Austin Theory is never going anywhere. I think that's clear at this point. And Grayson Waller's pretty good. I like him, but you're asking for my thoughts on something that doesn't require much thought. It's something that happened, and that's it.
What I don't understand about this Austin Theory thing is, if they weren't going to do anything with him, why would they give him the big time look of beating John Cena at WrestleMania? To me,
wasn't Vince still there? Wasn't he a Vince guy? I mean, from my understanding, he was a Vince guy because Roman cut that promo on him saying like, "Your daddy's not here to protect you anymore." Like, I think he was thought of in a different light by one regime than he's thought of by the next regime. Is more or less what it is.
That probably is true. I might be getting my timelines mixed up a little bit. I don't know if that was the first WrestleMania that Triple H took over, or was it the following? It probably was the following, if that's the case.
But even if it was the first, even if it was, he might have still given him the chance because of where he was. Here's your shot, and sink or swim.
Right. But they wasted a John Cena win on him. But you're right. I'm not a big Theory guy as well. I think he's pretty bum juice. But let's get into the main event of the show. I thought the way that they started this match was super cool with the long entrance that Cody Rhodes had, coming off of the bus, walking with his dog. This will be Pharaoh's last road trip. And you can see the emotions in his eyes. I don't know if any of you guys are dog owners. I know Robin is, but a dog is like an extension of your family. So I could kind of tell that this guy was super emotional. I thought it was really cool the way that ever since Kevin Dunn has been gone, how they show that long shot of you coming from Gorilla to the ramp. And we got an appearance by a former member of the Four Horsemen, AEW Cody Rhodes connection with Arn Anderson. If you don't know, Arn Anderson was Cody Rhodes' head coach in AEW. So it was nice to see him back. What are your thoughts on seeing Arn Anderson back? And what do you think that this does to add towards his act?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a little bit of a callback to the days of his dad, which Cody does quite often. Cody Rhodes, one of the challenges, cut a promo without mentioning your dad or something from your dad's era. But yeah, I mean, I think that was a nice little touch and a clear indication of Randy and KO, that sort of line coming in. Overall, I thought the match was okay. Again, like I said at the top, Solo just doesn't have it. He's just not good enough. He's got a nice presentation. He looks good. He has a nice, he does the henchman role well. I think he's actually done pretty well, even with the whole I'm taking over the tribal chief thing. Like, I think he's done a good job with that. He's just does not have the goods in the ring to be in a main event match. The reason he was in the main event match tonight is because Roman Reigns was returning. Simple as that. So I thought it was fine. I thought the interference stuff was fine. We knew it was coming. It was predictable. You got an arc. Every crowd wants to see an RKO. Right? Like, there's no crowd that sees Randy Orton doesn't want to see an RKO. But all in all, this was about getting to Roman Reigns, getting to that like Cody Roman Reigns moment of, wait a second, what's going on here? And then wondering, okay, how's this going to play out? Right? Like, are we getting a Roman and Solo program? I hope Jacob Fatu's not hurt, because I think that would really mess up probably where they have this going, and they would have to pivot to some degree. How does The Rock factor into this going forward? And then when is Cody Roman 3? And what is that going to look like when we eventually get there?
For sure, man. I don't know if you felt the same type of vibe, but it felt like throughout the match that it felt like the crowd kind of was sitting on their hands, because I feel like everybody was kind of just waiting to go crazy for that Roman returns that we felt was coming. I don't know if you've seen that sign in SmackDown and tonight of that Temu Bloodline sign.
Yeah, I've seen it. Look, Roman is bigger than everybody. He's bigger than Cody. He's bigger than everybody. He had the shirt, greatness on a different level. It's true. It's damn true, in honor of Kurt Angle, as the Olympics are going on. Roman Reigns is as big a reason as anything that I am as into wrestling as I am right now. Like, I grew up into wrestling. I watched the Coliseum home videotapes with my brother in Mississippi in my grandmother's place in Mississippi. We'd watch a rack of those tapes and see, Marty Jannetty get put through the barbershop window and, all that sort of stuff. I lived through the Attitude Era in high school. It was the guy Austin 316 shirt wearing at the school, DX Chops, NWO shirt like you're wearing. Like that was the coolest thing in the world. Then after college-ish, I was always a Parachute fan. I always check it out, see what's going on, reference it, but I wasn't in it until COVID. And COVID really, because we were inside and my kids were watching and they're like, what is this? And that was when Roman Reigns hit this tribal chief stride. Because, I was with everybody else. I felt the way about big dog Roman Reigns that everybody else felt. But tribal chief is something else. And he's got it. He's got the aura. He's bigger than you could feel his magnitude in his absence, right? Like the company felt less when he was gone. It feels bigger now that he's back. It's Robert Downey Jr. signing up as Dr. Doom. Roman Reigns is back to come step on the buildings.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the funny thing about Roman is it's not really comparable because, mainstream wise, of course, The Rock is bigger, but it's just a different vibe. Of course, we're all happy when The Rock comes back, but when Roman comes back, it's just a different type of vibe. And it feels like when this guy is on the stage, something big is going to happen every single time because we don't see him as much as we used to. So I'm glad that he's back. And I know that you've talked about this before. Is he on your Mount Rushmore?
Personally, yes. Absolutely. I mean, he might be forget Mount Rushmore. I'm throwing the ones up. He might be my number. I haven't bought a wrestling shirt since Austin 316 days. Objectively, he's headed for that Mount Rushmore argument too. I mean, it was Stone Cold. Well, I mean, really, the way it went was Hogan to Stone Cold to The Rock to John Cena to Roman Reigns. The Undertaker was sort of there that whole time in a different sort of way. But like when you're talking about like who had the company on their back for a period of time, Hogan, Austin, Rocky, Cena, Roman.
Facts. And he is the biggest draw of the most financially successful era of WWE. So he does have a case to be on that Mount Rushmore. Personally, for me, he's not on there yet, but he's knocking on the door.
And that Hollywood stuff is coming for him too.
Yeah.
Remember, like it didn't, The Rock is maybe he's more successful than anyone, but Cena is damn successful in Hollywood too.
Yeah.
And maybe by the time he's done, he's where The Rock, like the way the trajectory he's on. Roman is going to be there too. He's headed for it. He's got the look. He's got the charisma. He's funny. He's got the timing. So that, we don't have him for that much longer, I think. He's already not a full-time performer as a full-time performer, right? So imagine, how part-time he'll be when he's legitimately part-time. But, that Hollywood stuff is coming for Roman Reigns too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think he has a movie that just got wrapped.
He was in a movie. I forget. He's in a movie with like some pretty sizable people. I forget what it is, but there's like names in the movie.
Yeah, for sure. Now, on a scale to 1 to 5, let's do the Meltzer, ratings. What do you give this show? I personally give it about a 3.5, just basically on how it's moving, the stories moving forward. I'll let you know what, screw it. Let me give it the 4.
4.5.
4.5.
4.5. It was an excellent show with standout moments, a memorable return. I was thoroughly entertained. It's essentially 5 stars is like classic. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. It was below that, but not that far below that. 4.5, I think, is the right score for that. I give SummerSlam a 4.5.
I'm gonna give it a 4 just to disagree with you.
Okay.
So before we get out here, man, give us some plugs, man. Where can people find your content at?
Of course, Robin Lundberg on YouTube. You can find me on all the socials, off my Twitter, Facebook, and Women's Fast Break on SI for the women's basketball content for anybody into that.
All right. Now, I'm Kevin Zwicker, guys. Like and subscribe. This is the Fast Count. I'm out.